Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News, an Indian perspective on All India Radio. This is Saira Mujtaba, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds bilateral meeting with King of Bhutan, Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuk in New Delhi, reiterates India's full support for socio-economic development of Bhutan and additional standby credit facility. India rejects China's move to assign invented names of several places in Arunachal Pradesh, says such attempts will not alter the reality. 7 tourists killed after massive avalanche hits Gangtok-Nathula Road in the Indian state of Sikkim. Inflation in India to ease to 5.2% in current financial year, says World Bank. Former US President Donald Trump to be arraigned before a Manhattan court for alleged payment of hush money during 2016 presidential campaign. Finland joins NATO, Russia threatens countermeasures. And Pakistan Supreme Court declares Election Commission's decision delaying Punjab polls unconstitutional, orders voting on May 14. And now the news in detail. Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, and King of Bhutan, Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuk, held a bilateral meeting in New Delhi on Tuesday. During the meeting, both sides reviewed the entire gamut of bilateral cooperation to further boost their relationship. Briefing media in New Delhi, External Affairs Secretary Vinay Mohan Kwatra said, King of Bhutan, Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuk briefed Mr. Modi about the reform initiatives taken by Bhutan. He said, Prime Minister Modi also reiterated India's full support for socio-economic development of Bhutan.
Prime Minister, on his part, reiterated India's continued and full support to the socio-economic development in Bhutan. There were 5 broad discussion range issues. First was on economic and development partnership. Second bucket of issues was relating to trade, connectivity and investment cooperation. The third related element pertained to long-term and sustainable trade facilitation measures of both economies. 4, as part of new paradigms on energy cooperation, and the last subsegment in the economic chapeau relating to new sectors, space, startups.
Talking about the outcomes of the meeting, Mr. Kwatra said, India will also work to extend an additional standby credit facility.
It was agreed that India would step up its support to Bhutan's upcoming 13th 5-year plan. The specifics of this support, its distribution into different projects. 2, at Bhutan's request, India would work to extend an additional standby credit facility. This would be over and above the 2 existing standby credit facilities that is operating between the 2 countries. 3rd, we would work to shape long-term sustainable arrangements for export of agricultural commodities from Bhutan. Also work to develop long-term bilateral arrangements for assured supply of critical commodities to Bhutan, which would include petroleum, fertilizers and coal.
Mr. Kwatra said both the countries are examining and considering setting up the first integrated checkpost along the India-Bhutan border, which would be near Jaigaon. He said India and Bhutan will also expedite the proposed Kokrajhar-Gedapur rail link project through Government of India support in consultation with the Bhutanese side. Mr. Kwatra said this will be historic because it will be the first ever rail link between India and Bhutan. Later, King Wangchuk also called on the President of India, Draupadi Murmu, at Rashtrapati Bhavan. On the occasion, the President said that India and Bhutan enjoy a close partnership at all levels based on mutual trust, goodwill and understanding. She added that India deeply values multifaceted and unique partnership with Bhutan. The Bhutanese king is on a 3-day visit to India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday called upon the world for an integrated approach to deal with the impact of disasters. He said in a closely connected world, the impact of disasters will not just be local and therefore the response has to be integrated, not isolated. The Prime Minister was speaking at the 5th edition of the International Conference on Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, ICDRI 2023. Mr. Modi said, each nation and region faces disasters of different kinds and societies evolve local knowledge related to infrastructure that can withstand disasters. The External Affairs Ministry has refuted the Chinese move of renaming the places in Arunachal Pradesh. In a statement, official spokesperson of External Affairs Ministry, Arindam Bagchi, on Tuesday said, "This is not the first time China has made such an attempt." He said, "India rejects this outright." Mr. Bagchi asserted that Arunachal Pradesh is an integral and inalienable part of the country, and attempts to assign invented names will not alter this reality. The response came in the wake of media reports stating that China has renamed 11 places in Arunachal Pradesh. At least 7 tourists died after an avalanche struck the Gangtok-Nathula road in the Indian state of Sikkim on Tuesday. The avalanche hit the 14th mile on Jawaharlal Nehru Road, connecting popular tourist destinations of Changu Lake and Nathula Pass in the state. A defense spokesperson said around 20 to 30 tourists are feared to be trapped under the snow, along with 5-6 vehicles. Around 23 tourists have been rescued so far, including 6 from Deep Valley, and shifted to medical facilities. In addition, 350 stranded tourists and 80 vehicles have also been rescued. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that the rescue operation in Sikkim is underway and all possible assistance is being provided to those affected due to the avalanche. The Prime Minister expressed condolences to those who have lost their loved ones. The World Bank has said that inflation in India will further be eased to 5.2% in the financial year 2023-24 against 6.6% in the previous fiscal. In its report, the World Bank also projected that the current account deficit of the country will narrow to 2.1% of the gross domestic product for the current fiscal year from an estimated 3% in the previous fiscal. To check inflation, RBI has raised interest rates by 250 basis points since May 2022. However, the World Bank in the report said that rising borrowing costs in the country due to rise in interest rates will shrink domestic consumption, which will weigh on the GDP growth. Considering it, along with the recent turmoil in the global financial markets, the International Bank has moderately lowered the Indian GDP growth expectation to 6.3% in financial year 2023-24, which is near the RBI's latest projection of 6.4%. The second G20 Empower or Empowerment and Progression of Women's Economic Representation meeting under India's presidency of the G20 began on Tuesday in Kerala's Thiruvananthapuram. The theme of the 3-day meeting organized by the Union Ministry of Women and Child Development is Women's Empowerment, a Win-Win for Equity and Economy. A report.
On the first day today, as part of the side events, panel discussions were held on issues such as career development opportunities for women, development in care economy, and the role of corporate sector in women empowerment. In the meeting, the Kerala State Women and Child Welfare Minister, Veena George, explained about the role of Kudumbashree in women empowerment in Kerala and the increase in the gender budget allocation of the state. G20 Empower Chairperson Dr. Sangeeta Reddy and other prominent people participated in the discussions. The plenary section of the G20 Empower meeting will begin tomorrow. Union Minister of State for Women and Child Development, Munchapara Mahendra Bhai, will attend the inaugural function. Mayusha for AR News.
Bangladesh's economy faces considerable challenges with global economic uncertainty, rising inflationary pressure, energy shortages, balance of payment deficit, and a revenue shortfall, says the World Bank in its twice-a-year update released in Dhaka on Tuesday. The World Bank report points out that GDP growth rate for Bangladesh for the current financial year 2023 has decelerated to 5.2% due to rising inflation, tighter financial conditions, disruptive import restrictions, and global economic uncertainty. The banking sector also faced challenges with tighter liquidity and increasing non-performing assets (NPAs). However, Bangladesh remained at a low risk of debt distress, says the report. World Bank senior economist and co-author of the report, Bernard Haven, said that diversifying exports and improving competitiveness will help Bangladesh achieve upper middle income status by 2031. This is All India Radio giving you the world news. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on OPEC decision to cut crude oil production, reasons and implications. The participants are energy and oil expert Narendra Taneja in conversation with AIR correspondent Om Veshupadhyay.
So Mr. Taneja, simplify this, that what is OPEC Plus, and could you please share a detailed overview of this news that we are hearing on production halt?
Well, OPEC, as you know, is an organization of petroleum exporting countries based in Vienna. This is basically a cartel which is, has members who are big oil exporter. And their agenda is very simple. Their agenda is to work as a cartel and to make sure that they get the maximum possible price for oil that they produce. And when we say plus, it means that it has some other countries also. They're not formally members of OPEC, but they work almost in tandem together with OPEC. The main country there is Russia, which is also one of the major producers of oil in the world. So they have now taken the decision basically to go for production cut in the region of about 1.6 million barrels a day, which means that, 1.6 million barrels of oil will disappear from the market over the coming few months. So the whole strategy of OPEC, which as I said is a cartel, is to make sure that the oil prices remain high. We have seen the last few weeks the oil prices have been dipping. They've been going down. In one case it went down almost close to $72 per barrel. And of course OPEC was very unhappy with it, and so was Russia. So now they have taken the decision to cut so that, to make sure that the prices start going up again. And in fact, prices have started going up again. Because since COVID and economic slowdown, a recession, the demand for oil has been going down. So now they adopt as a strategy that they will go for production cut, pushing the prices up, because at the same time demand is increasing in geographies like India, but the entire world depends on oil. So when you go for this kind of production cut, it comes as a shock for the global economy.
And Mr. Taneja, when we try to understand this news in context of our country, India, which imports over 85% of its crude oil consumption, what impact will it have on India?
Well, you see, we are very much an oil economy, and we are also heavily dependent on imports. When you look at the large economies of the world, we happen to be the economy which is most dependent on imports, more than China, more than any other large economy, which means when the oil prices go up, it of course creates a lot of inconvenience and problems for our economy, since we import roughly 85% of our total requirement of oil. Of course, big chunk of this crude oil with the import is also kind of exported in the form of petrol, diesel, turbine fuel, etc. to different countries. We export petroleum products, as they are called, to about 106 countries around the world. And that is also a major export for our economy. But that said, at the same time, whenever oil prices go up, it does create a lot of problem for us. And, now the OPEC decision is a decision which, of course, is India, China, other large importing countries are very unhappy with it. Even the, developed economy like the United States have almost protested. Japan is also very unhappy with it. And we consume roughly 5.2 million barrels of oil every day. That makes us the third largest consumer, and we are also the third largest energy market in the world, namely oil. So in such a situation, when prices go up, it creates problem for everybody, whether you are an industrialist or a big corporation or manufacturer or just a small user buying petrol for your scooty or whatever. So it does create problems. So it has a huge impact. But at the same time, the governments have withdrawn the taxes that you refer to. Those are mainly the taxes on exports that we do of petroleum products to, as I said, 206 countries. So which means that, exports will become more attractive. And the government also want that, the first priority of all our refiners, whether public sector, the private sector, should be the Indian consumer, both individual consumer and the industrial consumer. So that's the government policy, to make sure that petrol, diesel, petroleum products are available to every single consumer across the country. So it was for that reason that the windfall tax was imposed to discourage export. But now the situation is a little bit normal. So therefore that has been withdrawn to make sure that at the same time that continues to be a major export item, which, as you know, that India is a major refining hub and India is a major exporter of refined products to all countries, including rich countries like the United States and Western Europe, etc.
And Mr. Taneja, there's also a speculation that this news might affect India's macroeconomic variables, including a range-bound rupee, balance of payments, and foreign exchange reserves.
We are a big importer of oil, and as the oil is traded in dollars. So whenever they increase the price which they have, that's the agenda of OPEC. That means that we will need to buy more dollars from the market, and in order to pay for our imports. So for absolutely no reason, no fault of ours, we will need to pay more. And at the same time, since oil is at the center of our economy, we are broadly speaking in an oil economy. When oil prices go up, that has a kind of spiral effect on practically on everything, because consumer products to vegetables to energy production to transport, you name it, every single vertical of the Indian economy is impacted. and even the household economy, right from the bus fee for the kids and LPG cylinder, practically everything. So these things are largely imported, as you know, that including LPG, which is used as a domestic gas. So it has a huge macro. You look at it, is a huge impact. At the same time, impact the value of rupee, because when we buy more dollar, that affects, of course, the value of rupee vis-a-vis dollar, for that matter, other hard currencies. So for us, whenever the prices go up, it really creates a lot of problem. And the other reason is that the oil prices have been dipping, so consumers thought that maybe we'll be able to kind of buy, or the company will be able to reduce the price of petrol and diesel in coming few weeks and months. And so everyone was hoping for that. But now that's unlikely to happen, because instead of going down, the prices actually gone up, and they might go further up. So in such a situation, Indian refiners will have to work even harder to make sure that they can protect, insulate the ordinary consumer to the extent possible. But overall, you see, whenever the prices go up, it's always a bad and hard news for the ordinary consumer.
And Mr. Taneja, yesterday when we got the news of OPEC production cut, and today the central government cut all windfall tax on crude oil from 3,500 per ton to zero that you were mentioning earlier in the answer. In simple words, how can you describe this windfall tax cut and how significant it could be for the citizens of India?
Well, you see, the whole idea was that, we are an important, significant producer of oil in the country. We produce oil in the Bay of Bengal, in Assam, in Rajasthan, in the Barmer area, and in Gujarat, and in Bombay offshore, and also in parts of Andhra Pradesh, and also in few pockets in southern part of the country. So, which means that, but at the same time, the government policy is that whether oil is produced domestically or oil is produced in oil assets owned by Indian companies overseas, the price will be the same as the international price, which means that you may be producing oil in India, but the price you get is the same as you get overseas. So which means when the OPEC takes the decision, prices start going up. E&P companies, exploration production companies such as Oil India, such as Cairn, such as ONGC, their income goes up because they're getting more money. Per barrel, they actually get the same money as, for instance, others around the world. So their income goes up. So the government decided to impose a kind of windfall tax. So the theory was simple, that you are getting windfall tax for no extra expenditure, for no extra reason, you are making more money. So what the government did was to kind of impose a windfall tax and then use that money in order to insulate the ordinary consumer from the higher oil prices, which means that give that money to companies that retail oil and gas in different forms so that the ordinary consumer is protected. So it's a mechanism that whenever oil prices go up, the government can impose windfall tax on the companies which are producing oil within the domestic borders and shores. So now the government thinks the prices have gone up again. So they have basically decided to withdraw the tax. But the prices went up. Prices were going up and down at the time when the Ukraine war happened. When the Ukraine war happened, prices went beyond $110, while the production of cost it didn't go up. So that's why the windfall tax was imposed. As I said, the strategy was simple. The government policy was simple to make sure, on the one hand, these companies don't get earn extra profit, and at the same time, use that money in the form of a windfall tax and pass on that to the retail companies so that the ordinary consumer, ordinary Aam Aadmi is protected.
And Mr. Taneja, the decision by OPEC Plus to cut crude oil production led to a sharp rise in global crude oil prices that you were saying. Can we say it is renewing the inflation concerns that we had?
Oh, absolutely. Whenever the oil prices go up and in a very deliberate manner, because there are no reasons for them to do that. There are absolutely no reason except for the reason that they want to make more money. It's greed, basically. I mean, they say that, look, Saudi Arabia needs more money for their internal reasons and for their building infrastructure and all that. But why do you expect the world to pay for that? So, therefore, I mean, it's a deliberate decision. Their own interest, call it greed, call it by any other name. But, of course, but for the global economy, it's going to make recovery difficult. It's going to kind of, add to inflation in most countries, including United States and western part of Europe and even India, and several other countries which are heavily dependent on imports or energy deficit. So I think, they have taken this decision, which in my views, is a very selfish way of looking at the picture, and completely ignoring that if there is inflation in the western part of the world, in India, in China, and other countries, in the long run is only going to be actually harm them, because countries have more money, they can buy more oil and pay better price. But if you do it deliberately at the time when inflation has become an issue, recession has become an issue, then of course you are only complicating, creating troubles for these countries, which they are. So I think short term they might gain, but long term they would also be the loser.
And with your insightful inputs, thank you so much, Mr. Taneja, for joining us today on All India Radio.
Thank you.
That was a hotspot section, and now in some more news. In Pakistan, the country's Supreme Court has declared the Election Commission's decision to postpone polls in the Punjab province as null and void. Terming the decision to delay the polls unconstitutional, the Supreme Court fixed May 14 as the date for polls in the province. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif-led Pakistan government has been trying to delay the provincial elections, citing security issues and the economic crisis. The verdict comes as a boost for former Prime Minister Imran Khan-led Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party. The verdict underlined that the last date for submitting appeals against the returning officer's decision is 10th of April, and the election tribunal will announce the decision on the appeals on 17th of April. The apex court asked the federal government to provide 21 billion Pakistani rupees to the Election Commission by 10th of April and directed the poll body to present a report on the issue by 11th of April. On March 22, the Election Commission of Pakistan delayed assembly polls in the Punjab province by more than 5 months to October the 8th. In Sri Lanka, the existing fuel quotas for vehicles have been increased for the New Year festive season with effect from midnight tonight. Sri Lanka's Power Minister Kanchana Vijayashekhara tweeted that the increase in the fuel quota has been done across the board by at least 50%. The proposal has been made to increase three-wheel quotas from 5 litres, three-wheelers quotas from 5 litres to 8 litres, motorcycles from 4 litres to 7 litres, cars from 20 litres to 30 litres, land vehicles from 15 litres to 25 litres, lorries from 50 litres to 75 litres, special purpose vehicles from 20 litres to 30 litres, and vans from 20 litres to 30 litres. The Court of Cassation in Dubai has rejected the appeal of a British financier, Sanjay Shah, who is fighting extradition to Denmark on charges of orchestrating a $1.7 billion tax fraud scheme. Shah, a hedge fund trader, was arrested in Dubai last year after being accused of masterminding the scheme, which ran from 2012 to 2015. The court upheld a previous ruling that granted Denmark's request for extradition, although it is not yet clear when Shah will be extradited. In a separate ruling last September, Shah was ordered to pay $1.25 billion to Denmark's tax authority as part of a civil case in Dubai. Shah's lawyers are appealing that ruling, and he has maintained his innocence in interviews with journalists. Sanjay Shah is a Dubai-based British-Indian businessman and founder of Solo Capital, a hedge fund firm which closed in 2016, and the NGO Autism Rocks, which closed in 2020. Former U.S. President Donald Trump will appear before a New York state court on charges of paying hush money to an adult film star, Stormy Daniels, during the 2016 presidential campaign. Trump, the first former U.S. president to face a criminal charge, will appear before Judge Juan Merchan at 2:15 p.m. EST, that is 11:45 p.m. IST. The charges in the indictment will be read to him at the hearing, which is set to last about 10 to 15 minutes. Mr. Trump's lawyer said in a statement that he will plead not guilty to the charges linked to $130,000 hush money payment to a porn actor for silence about her claim of an alleged tryst with him a decade earlier. Meanwhile, the former president has long denied the claim. Finland joined the NATO and became the 31st member of the military alliance today. Finland's membership became official when its foreign minister handed over documents completing its accession process to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken at Brussels. The U.S. State Department is the repository of NATO texts concerning membership. However, Russia earlier said that it will be forced to take countermeasures to ensure its security. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov called the move to include Finland into NATO as an encroachment on Russia's security. He alleged that the structure of NATO is hostile towards Russia. In another setback for TikTok, Britain's data watchdog had fined the Chinese-owned video-sharing social media app $15.9 million for breaching the country's data protection law. The fine was imposed as TikTok was found using personal data of children aged under 13 without parental consent. According to the British Information Commissioner's Office, TikTok allowed as many as 1.4 million UK children under 13 to use its platform in 2020, even though it sets 13 as the minimum age to create an account. UK Information Commissioner John Edwards said, children's data may have been used to track and profile them, potentially presenting them with harmful or inappropriate content. A TikTok spokesperson said, the company disagreed with the decision. It said that the company will continue to review the decision and is considering the next steps. While India had completely banned TikTok in 2020, countries like the United States, Australia, Canada and New Zealand have banned the use of TikTok on government devices. China today warned the US not to repeat disastrous past mistakes by hosting Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen. China's statement comes amid US House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's planned meeting with Tsai. McCarthy will host a meeting with Tsai in California on Wednesday. He is the third most senior US leader after the US President and Vice President. China said that the meeting would not help regional peace and stability and not only unite the Chinese people against a common enemy. China claims Taiwan as its own territory. Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen will make a transit visit in Los Angeles on her way back to Taipei after a trip to Central America. The US has said that such stopovers are common practice and there is no need for China to overreact. Taiwanese leaders, including Tsai, have previously transited through the US on their way to other places. In IPL cricket, the match between Delhi Capitals and Gujarat Titans is underway in Delhi. Chasing a target of 163 set by Delhi Capitals, Gujarat Titans were 107 for 4 in 13.2 overs when reports last came in. Earlier, Gujarat Titans won the toss and opted to field. For Delhi Capitals, David Warner scored 37 runs while Akshar Patel scored 36 runs. For Gujarat Titans, Rashid Khan and Mohammad Shami scalped 3 wickets each. And now let's take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Guardian writes, Ugandan president calls on Africa to save the world from homosexuality. The Globe and Mail reports Ottawa bends to US push to purchase strategic hangar in Arctic sought by Chinese buyer. Financial Times writes, JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon says regulations stoked banking turmoil. Wall Street Journal reports Signature Bank insiders sold $100 million in stock as crypto surged. The Straits reports Google workers in London walk out over job cuts. Le Monde writes Hungary's poorest hit hard by record inflation. South China Morning Post reports Chinese envoy calls on France to ditch investment hurdles as Macron trip nears. And the Business Recorder writes State Bank of Pakistan raises key policy rate by 100 basis points, takes it to 21%. While the New York Times writes China strikes back at the US chip maker even as it signals openness. And now a quick look at the headlines once again. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds bilateral meeting with King of Bhutan, Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuk in New Delhi, reiterates India's full support for socio-economic development of Bhutan and additional standby credit facility. India rejects China's move to assign invented names of several places in Arunachal Pradesh, says such attempts will not alter the reality. 7 tourists killed after massive avalanche hits Gangtok Nathula Road in the Indian state of Sikkim. Inflation in India to ease to 5.2% in current fiscal year, says World Bank. Former US President Donald Trump to be arraigned before a Manhattan court for alleged payment of hush money during 2016 presidential campaign. Finland joins NATO, Russia threatens countermeasures. And Pakistan Supreme Court declares Election Commission's decision delaying Punjab polls as unconstitutional, orders voting on May 14. And now before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Senegal. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.